Welcome back to The Big Question. Like we told you earlier, our guest tonight is National Assembly Speaker Justin Muturi. Thank you so much for making time for The Big Question tonight. A lot of controversy after the standing orders were amended to create the Committee on General Oversight. 3 cabinet secretaries are expected to appear today. 1 did, that is Charity Ngilu, Lance Cabinet Secretary. 2 did not appear. And that is where I'll begin with you. What action is going to be taken against the other 2?
Well, like I said earlier on, the Speaker does not decide what action is to be taken.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever action is to be taken is informed by what the members decide. And it is important that to state that already the leader of the majority party has indicated that those particular cabinet secretaries will be appearing next week.
Right. To be specific, we're talking about Professor Jacob Kemenyi of Education and Interior Cabinet Secretary Joseph Olelenku. They were seen at the precincts of Parliament this morning. I don't know if you saw them. Did you?
I saw. Yes, I did see Professor Kemenyi. Yes.
Did it concern you as to why you didn't see them?
No, you see, the arrangement was such that they want to come and be hosted in the office of the leader of the majority.
Mm-hmm.
So that each cabinet secretary spends their 45 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
they leave, and then the next one comes, they leave, and the last one.
Right.
Yes.
So the question is, were you concerned as to why they were in the precincts of Parliament, expected to follow after the Lance Cabinet Secretary, but they did not come?
Yeah, of course, it is a matter that raised concern with everybody, and that's why we send the leader majority, since the standing orders have been provided in such a way that it's the leader majority who is the intermediary between Parliament and the executive.
So has there been any reason given as to why they...
He provided some explanation in the afternoon when now we went to sit as plenary.
Mm-hmm.
Because I did indicate to members that it would not be fair to discuss that issue in committee, because it's a matter that touched on a resolution of the House in plenary as a House to amend the standing orders.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that time that the leader majority did explain that certain communications did happen.
From the ministers?
From the ministers, and that that in the course of next week, he will make sure that they come.
Okay. The Commission on Implementation of the Constitution, as other quarters, have talked about this, but have questioned, say, what is happening, saying this is actually violating the Constitution. They've actually threatened to go to court. I'm sure you received a letter from them.
Yeah, and in fact, I welcome the move, the threat to go to court, because they are citing the principle of separation of powers.
Mm-hmm.
But Article 153, Clause 3 of the Constitution is very clear that cabinet secretaries shall appear before committees of the National Assembly or the Senate to answer questions on matters relating to their dockets, for which they are responsible.
Right.
So anybody saying that they want to go to court, they are welcome to go, because that is so clear. And then, of course, Article 124 of the Constitution is also very clear that Parliament may establish committees, and after establishing committees, shall provide standing orders for orderly conduct of business.
Right.
That is exactly what Parliament has done.
Right.
So I want to, anybody who wants to go to court, and in any event, even if somebody goes to court, the function of establishing committees is exclusive to Parliament, not to any other, not to any other arm of government. So I would be willing to see anybody suggesting that Parliament cannot establish committees.
So you don't see this being, overlapping what committees are doing? And the article you quoted initially talked about committees of Parliament, and that is what has been happening, isn't it? Cabinet secretaries appearing before specific committees, not the whole.
Yes, over the last 1.5 years,
yes,
both the executive and the legislature have been consulting to look for which is the best way, because a chairman or chair of a committee really coming to read an answer provided for by a CS is not really visible, is not the best way. But those are the standing orders which are inherited from the 10th Parliament, adopted in January of 2013. They provided for statements. And then we have looked at this system. We have found it obviously very wanting, because chairs of committees also have other responsibilities, and indeed they cannot answer on behalf of the executive. Indeed, that position is agreed even by the executive itself, that it is not possible.
Right, but I mean, you must trust these MPs as honorable MPs to chair these committees and talk to these cabinet secretaries on specific issues. I don't know, maybe you can tell us why you're saying this other way is more feasible and better than what has been happening.
Because essentially what has been happening is members have been responding to questions. And then, of course, the questions, the chairs of committees, the questions are so many that indeed the executive began raising concerns that their CSs were permanently before committees. And we have been working together, saying, can we look for the best way, how to navigate these things? The need for members of parliament to raise questions and the desirability of CSs responding. Mm-hmm. And we found if questions are raised, and there are very many, very, very many,
on different issues?
On different issues.
And,
to an extent that actually, if you look at some, cabinet secretaries would permanently be in committees. And that is what we have been trying to assist.
So what you're saying then, in essence, is that these questions will never end. And there are so many, isn't it?
They don't end. And it's not that's not peculiar to Kenya.
Yeah.
we have taken a sufficient study the world over in many comparable jurisdictions.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And that is why then I believe the people who are arguing against this would say having committees that handle specific issues will then make it easier for any member with a question on a specific issue to forward it to the relevant committee.
Yes, I think it's one
which would segment it even better, to handle it better, other than what you're saying.
That would appear on paper like it's a feasible thing. But unfortunately, the practice is such that if we were to go that route, and which is what we have been having, you find members raising and complaining that I raised my statement, I raised my question, I asked my question 6 months ago. This chair of this committee has not brought me an answer. But the chair of the committee says, look, I submitted the question to the cabinet secretary. The cabinet secretary is at liberty. I cannot go to sit in government offices.
So isn't the problem then with the effectiveness of the chairs of the committees?
Not really effectiveness of the chairs of committees, because much as they have tried, and some of them have really tried, they found it extremely difficult to have to do the other duties, functions of the committees, like budget and the scrutiny of bills, alongside having to answer, to respond to questions by fellow members.
Honorable Speaker, you're talking about this being the viable way. 349 members, 45 minutes for a cabinet secretary. Definitely not all of them will ask a question. Why would you think this is a viable way? And even today, when Honorable Ngilu was talking, and with all due respects to what questions members of parliament were asking, some would say some of the questions that were being asked were very mundane or inappropriate. Questions that would have been asked at the local level and handled by officials of the relevant ministries at the local level, because we know the CS's role actually is more policy.
Unfortunately, to respond to that, Hussein, members of parliament don't have all that latitude to go to government officials to summon them. It will really be, because you are saying things like going to a land registrar over some county and things like those, then they are not doing work. Because if you do it at a general level, where the minister or the cabinet secretary is the one responding, it covers the entire country. Look at some of the responses that the Honorable Charity Ngilu gave today. They covered, there were really issues that covered very many parts of the country. It is that kind of thing that we are trying to, we hope to achieve. But let me also say this with regard to the time of 45 minutes. Even within Parliament itself, we sit from 2:30 to 6:30. Every member is required to speak for only 10 minutes. If, without doing anything else, without even saying prayers, we started at 2:30, every member speaking for 10 minutes, only 24 members will speak out of the 349. So really, it is not this challenge. This challenge goes beyond what we are seeing now.
And you see, that is why the question is, this is just overlapping. Why don't you just leave it to the committees, which is very well segmented, specific issues where everybody can
The problem with that, I'm saying, time and again, unless we don't want committees to do their core function, one of which is to scrutinize all bills. And that right now, actually, given the fact that there's no executive in the House, there are so many private members' bills, and they are all referred to those committees. Budget scrutiny, a very critical part. Committees just don't have the time to deal with the questions.
Okay. Let's move on now to more of what people have been questioning, your personality. On the other issue, of course, you're also saying the other way you're talking about this Committee on General Oversight may not also be the most viable, isn't it? It may not.
Well, we are saying, just like I say, democracy is not the best form of government, but all others are much worse. Okay. We have tried what we knew, what we inherited. Some we have found it wanting.
Right. Yes. Some say it's still illegal. We'll see if CIC goes to court on that. Your insistence on this and other issues that Parliament does, I've seen some label you as a rogue speaker, sorry to say. A case in point, the issue about, okay, we have a clip and I'll run it shortly, but first, let's talk about the issue of SRC. And with that, I'll read a text here from, I think, Gishuri Mwangi from Nyahururu. Nyahururu says, Parliament should get over the fixation that they are God's gift to Kenya and stop riding roughshod over everyone and every institution, including CAK, CIC, judiciary, and now the executive. We never swapped an imperial presidency for parliamentary dictatorship. Many would say, and it has happened, there has been friction with most of these institutions. Many people say if one person fights with everybody, then that one person must have a problem. When the issue of SRC came and on salaries and it was taken to court, this is an answer you gave when there was a move to have court recover the illegal pay after the High Court declared unconstitutional action by MPs to increase their salaries. You answered by saying, and I quote, I dare the LSK and anyone else who may so wish to quickly rush to court and obtain the orders, but I can guarantee the same cannot be executed. Let them try. Are those words that you think reflect your status? Some have said those are words that depict you as a rogue speaker, that you can be a bit careless sometimes in how you talk?
Well, everybody has their way, their own style of doing things and speaking. And it does not matter what you do, Hussein. There will be people who don't agree with you. There will be people who agree with you. When everybody starts, when everything, we want to rush to court, it's just today. At the opening of the conference of East African Magistrate Judges Association this morning, that I have heard the president raise concerns about ex parte injunctions having been given by the judiciary, which impede both the executive and the legislature.
Right.
So really, this thing is not, and the judiciary is saying that we are independent, we must assert our independence. I think there's really nothing. We are reading maybe far too much into these things than is really the case.
Right. I have a clip. We have a clip right now to play. This is today's clip, what you said in Parliament. Let's listen to that.
It is, I don't know, some people are having problems in their minds, some cobwebs of sorts, and we have explained very clearly, the only reason that we are sitting here, like we sit in Nakamukunji, is because we do not have another hall where this committee could sit. So I do not understand where people are getting stomach problems from, imagining that if they appear, this will be a plenary. It is not a plenary. We have made it abundantly clear that it is not a plenary. This is a committee.
And many would ask again whether that reflects your status. You say it there, people thinking like they have cobwebs in their heads or in their minds. And there was some time you also said courts are making idiotic and unreasonable court orders. Some would call that, I mean, your choice of words, you're being more abrasive than you are persuasive.
One thing about that thing about courts, I want to respond. Your own reporter, Francis Gashuri, came to my office and asked me, what is your reaction to this statement by the Chief Justice yesterday on a Sunday when he addressed the media?
Yeah.
It is the Chief Justice who said that court orders, however idiotic, must be obeyed.
Right.
So the question was put to me by Francis Gashuri.
Yes.
And I said, well, I'm actually surprised the Chief Justice acknowledges that some of the orders are idiotic. But now, people have spun that thing to make it appear that it originated from me.
Okay.
It did not.
Okay.
It is the Chief Justice who used at a press conference at Serena Hotel. And that I'm sure, if you go through your clips, you will see that.
Fair enough, I'll leave it at that.
So if you can refer to court orders as idiotic, you know, earlier on you were asking me about choice of words.
Okay, I'm sure I'll meet him after this and I'll ask Gashuri.
Yes.
But fair enough. But the other one you just said, we had that clip, you can't deny that.
Yes.
People think like they have cobwebs in their minds.
Yes. Some of these people who have been writing, you know, I saw some people, civil society, saying this or the other. Honestly, people need to understand the operations of Parliament, so that even if you are writing an opinion piece, please let it be informed by the truth of what happens there.
And that the question then is isn't there a better way of saying these things so that you bring people together? You as actually is to create a conducive environment. Like you say, we are all, you know, it's a ping pong game. The court says they are right, Parliament says they are right. In Parliament itself, there are some problems. Your style has been questioned. Many, especially opposition, MPs accuse you of, you know, shutting down divergent opinions, sometimes participating in debates yourself.
I would want members to actually be specific when it is that somebody with a divergent opinion has been shut out from debate. I think there has been a general misconception, in fact, including people who have been writing, saying that I've made rulings in favor of one side. I have never been called, since I took office, I've never been called to make a ruling between the two sides of the political divide in the House. I've only been called upon to make rulings on procedures, not on the political divisions. And I would want anybody to quote a particular ruling, so that people don't talk about generalities.
Right.
Yes.
But yourself, within yourself, and this coming from sources we talked to, sources telling us, many from opposition and vocal ones, that they've actually resorted to talking outside Parliament proceedings because you won't let them, you know, express themselves freely during the proceedings. Would you agree to that? And is there anything you regret as having done in terms of maybe, have you ever impeded someone from expressing themselves?
Certainly not. I don't impede members. And I would want you again to go to the records. You will see that every time there's a debate, I will pick a member from one side, after that go to the other side, only differentiate by way of there's a party in the coalitions, there are parties, there are regions, there are the issue of women, the issue of youth, the issue of independence. That's the consideration that as a speaker I'm supposed to. Not about whether you oppose whatever is on the floor. It is not mine. The speaker has no vote. Article 122 of the Constitution is very clear. I have no vote. So whatever decisions are made there is up to the members there. It is members to persuade their colleagues. But of course, some people think that when a particular side wins, given that they know that I was sponsored by a particular side, they think that is the speaker's decision. It isn't. Far from it. I preside over the entire House. Okay. Yes.
National Assembly has been accused of, there's been a lot of friction with so many institutions, Judicial Service Commission, the courts, CIC, SRC, even the Senate. Doesn't that point to something under your leadership?
Well, when you talk about the SRC, I thought the issue of SRC really were the issues that I am to deal with as a chairman of the Parliamentary Service Commission. And that is a responsibility I cannot run away from. When we came, we found that SRC and Gazette and some issues, and it was upon me as the chair of the Parliamentary Service Commission to take up the matter with the SRC. But what individual members then would say or do about SRC, those are not that really cannot be reflected on me.
Right.
I went into negotiations with SRC, and nothing that we did with SRC was ever brought out as contentious.
Although the court declared that unconstitutional.
Which court?
The court declared unconstitutional what happened.
Which one? Which one?
And he used, and that is why you said, that is why I quoted when you were saying, I dare the LSK and anyone else who may wish to quickly rush to court and obtain the orders, but I can guarantee that the same cannot be executed. Let them try.
Unfortunately, sorry, I was saying, what happened at that time, some people went to court to challenge something which was in law in Kuwait. In Kuwait, it was not yet, actually what the court was declaring unconstitutional never even happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. How do you compare, finally, because we are running out of time, I wish we had more time with you. How do you compare, and people have done that, your leadership and that of your predecessor, Kenneth Merende, and even the quality of debates in the House, this Parliament, and the 10th Parliament, which was regarded very highly?
You see, unfortunately, I cannot be held responsible for the quality of debates. That is the Kenyans who elected the members of Parliament who are there. So they should not, nobody should, I don't do research for people. I wish it was a time when I used to be a member of Parliament myself, because I would never speak to a matter unless I was fully persuaded of a particular point of view.
Yeah.
I would do my research.
Yeah.
And I know there are quite a number of members actually who do their research.
Yeah.
And I must say, some do very well. Others, of course, will speak for 2 minutes and they say, with those few remarks, I oppose or support. That is not really my business.
Right.
But let me say this.
Yes.
People are at liberty to compare. But we are the first parliament which is dealing with a situation of a presidential system where there is no executive in the National Assembly or even in the Senate, actually, to be fair. Yeah. Even to the Senate.
Okay.
So I think we are trying to compare the incomparable, because we are dealing with an assembly of 349 members against the previous parliament of 222 members.
Okay. Finally, your demeanor, and many have said that you get angered easily. You think that that is the case? And it actually distorts the kind of debates and the expressions that how people want to express themselves in Parliament? If
I did, maybe the person to be blamed is my maker. It has nothing to do. It has nothing to do with me.
But you think you are?
I'm generally a very jovial person, Hussein, and even on the floor of the House, members will tell you, sometimes it's good. I've been to many other parliaments. I've seen you can't just stick to just strict rules. You need to also have those light moments. It is only fair.
Okay.
Actually, some parliaments are so free,
right,
that sometimes I wish that we did have the kind of strict rules that we have here.
Okay.
So that we can also get some little fun in the House.
Right. We have to wind up. Monica is going to kill me. Just 2 seconds. Harambes, do you support? Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission there's been a problem between MPs and Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission about Harambes. What is your position on that?
Well, if I'm called to do a Harambe, I'll do a Harambe for a worthy cause. Yes. If I'm called,
yeah,
it's a matter of philanthropy, really.
So you don't oppose to that?
But I do not support going to solicit.
Okay.
Yes.
Justin Muturi, Speaker, National Assembly, thank you so much for making time. For the big question, let's look at some of the feedback on Twitter right now. We have at Etiang Eli Emod, summons give CSS exceptional opportunity and an avenue for demonstration of commitment to the government's agenda. We have at Omweri, the CSS will indeed become regular members given the overlap in watchdog committees in the National Assembly and the Senate. At A.W. Dole, when MPs double as House committees chairs, answering questions on behalf of the executive, overseeing gets difficult. Right, and finally, just 2 here on 22422. Somebody says here, he's a rogue speaker talking about you. Other former speakers knew their jobs. Another person agrees with you, says, no, if the Constitution dictates it to be so, let each arm of the government play its role. But we should not forget that our CSS are presidential appointees outside Parliament and not party to changing standing orders by National Assembly. Calling it rogue is a bit harsh. That is Reverend Jomo GG from Westlands. Thank you so much for making time for us, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you.
On the big question tonight, of course, we are asking, is National Assembly Speaker Justin Muturi presiding over a rogue National Assembly? Keep sending us your comments on 2242 and on Twitter using the hashtag The Big Question. We are back after this short break.